Hola clase. So tonight we're ready for our second round of verbs in the preterite. Tonight we're going to focus on gar, car, sar verbs. In other words, verbs that end in gar, car, or sar. Remember that there's no Z sound in Spanish, so please don't pronounce those verbs like aterrizar with a Z sound, aterrizar. No, we don't want to, okay? So, with verbs that end in gar, car, or sar, like despegar, sacar, or aterrizar, you need to make the following changes in the yo form only in the preterite. Be aware, the rest of these AR verbs is going to remain the same. We're only going to change the yo forms. So whenever we conjugate a verb that ends in sar in the yo form in the preterite, we're going to change the Z to a C. And we're still going to maintain the same sound because we started with a S sound. It's just that we're not going to see a Z there anymore. We're going to see a C before our A. So, it's the verb aterrizar, to land. If I conjugate it in the preterite using yo, it's going to be yo aterricé. Any gar verb is going to also have a change in the yo form when we conjugate it in the preterite. We're going to add a U after the G. That's to maintain the hard G sound, G sound, because when we add I or E after G's in Spanish, we always get a H sound, a softer G. So in order to maintain that sound we started with, gar, we have to add a U. So we get, for example, from the verb despegar, which means to take off, yo despegué. And we have to add the U before the E with the accent, right? Any car verb, with any car verb, we have to do something similar. Except now, we're not going to keep the C at all. We're going to change the C to a QU. So anytime you have a verb that ends in car and you want to conjugate the yo form in the preterite, you're going to have a verb that now ends in QU E with an accent, or que. So the verb sacar is the example I've chosen. Yo saqué. All other preterite conjugations for these verbs remain the same. Remember, only the yo forms change with gar, car, sar verbs. So let's have a look at a few of these verbs. In the sar category, we know a few. Here are some that you've already worked with before and that are quite common. Empezar, to start. Comenzar, which also means to start. And by the way, these verbs do not stem change in the preterite, so you don't need to worry about their stem changes. Aterrizar, to land a plane. Almorzar, which we've used quite a bit, to have lunch. And lanzar, which might be new to you, means to throw or toss. A ball, for example. Here are some verbs that end in car, many of which you're very familiar with. Remember that these in the preterite in the yo form are going to change to Q, U, and then our A. So, tocar, to touch or play an instrument. Sacar, and remember that tocar can also be used like gustar to indicate that it's somebody's turn. Me toca a mí, for example, which means it's my turn. Sacar, to take out or to get, like when we talk about grades, for example, sacar buenas notas. Practicar, which we know, to practice, and can also be used in the expression practicar deportes, to play sports. Marcar, which means to dial on the phone, or to mark something. Buscar, which remember is never followed by por or para. We don't need, the for part is already in buscar. And finally, a new one maybe for you that we can use a little bit for fun, atacar. Here are some gar verbs, quite a few of which you're very familiar with. Jugar, to play. Despegar. Yeah, since we had aterrizar, I thought I'd give you despegar, which means to take off in a plane. Pagar, very common obviously. Cargar, to load or carry something. And descargar, which can mean to unload or to download. Un ejercicio. Translate the following using gar, car, sar verbs. Be careful. Only two of these have I in them. Here's another exercise. This time, guess the correct verb and conjugate it in the preterite in the blank. Again, you can pause this, and as with the previous exercise, you should write it on a separate sheet of paper, bring it to class. And one more. Careful again, only two of these have yo in them. Be careful with the context. This time, choose the best verb in numbers in the first two and conjugate it correctly. In the last one, guess the right verb and conjugate it correctly. Okay, and we're going to leave off here. This is our next topic for tomorrow night. Los verbos con cambio radical o los verbos con cambio de raíz. Have a wonderful evening, buenas noches, and nos vemos en clase.